who is with us, Iman-Ibrahim, she has a BA in English literature, my shared major. I have a BA in English and French, from Kuwait University, and she also has a BA in Humanities and Religion and a master's degree in International Affairs and Conflict Resolution from the School of Public International Administration at Carleton University, NPSIA. She happens also to bring to the table great skills of negotiation because she is a member of the Christian-Muslim Dialogue Group, the Ottawa Committee for Asian Heritage Month, the Ottawa Muslim Women's Organization, and the Forum of Canadian Ombudsmen. She's the co-chair of the Ottawa chapter of the Department of Peace Initiative, advocating the establishment of a Ministry of Peace for Canada. She's been active in peace building and cultural diversity projects for many years. Iman was born in Egypt and has made Canada her home since 1994, while connecting with her home country, Egypt, on a regular basis. She also played an active role in organizing the demonstrations in Ottawa during the Egyptian Revolution, and is in the process of co-founding with a few Canadian Egyptian professionals the Canadians for Egypt to help the democratization process in Egypt. So without further ado, I'll turn over to Iman-Ibrahim.
Thank you, Sheila, so much, and thank you all for joining us this evening. First, I would like to say that I'm very proud to be an Egyptian Canadian, and to be participating, witnessing, and hopefully participating in this transformation that is taking place in the Middle East. It's long due. Thank you. That's all. We all know that the Tunisian revolution started and ignited a spark in Egypt. Do you hear me clearly? Okay. And on January 25th this year, the Egyptians, old and young and youth and children, women and men, Muslims and Christians, they are all united in the Tahrir Square and elsewhere all over Egypt. But mainly in Tahrir Square, and they started what became known as the Rage Revolution or Freedom Revolution. Their numbers grew to about 20 million active participants over the 18 years of the revolution. And their main goal was to force Mubarak to step down and to change his corrupt regime. They did not give up until after 18 days. The military junta took over, and they dissolved the parliament and suspended the constitution and forced Mubarak to step down. Within these 18 days, the price was quite high. About 1,000 were killed, 1,400 lost their eyes due to the rubber bullets, and 4,000 to 5,000 are still missing. We are thinking that they are either in a group grave or in unknown lockup somewhere. At least 10,000 criminals were released from prison to spread chaos among the population, and as well as the regime's thugs and corrupt police, some of whom were disguised in civil clothes. Now, there are three questions that are relevant that I would like to share with you. Why the revolution didn't happen for 30 years? Why did it happen now? And what is the current situation there in Egypt? Why the revolution didn't happen for 30 years? Well, Egypt has a population of about 80 million people, and more than 1/3 of them are under the age of 25. So these youth have not seen any president in their lives except Hosni Mubarak and his corrupt regime. They lived in a very unfair environment and faced a hostile regime. Mubarak monopolized power for about 30 years, and the corruption in the government was rampant, especially with the involvement of Gamal Mubarak's businessmen friends, and who exploited the resources of the country and actually sold assets of the country to foreign people as well. The main thing was to benefit 2 to 3% of the rich elite in the country, whereas more than half the population lived under the poverty line of $2 per day. Under emergency law, the corrupt, which Mubarak maintained for the 30 years, the corrupt police has been the regime's tool to repress, arrest, and torture people without accountability. More than half the population lived under the poverty line. People lost their dignity and human rights, and the health and education systems and services deteriorated to an unprecedented level. We heard of the food riots in 2008, and some people lost their lives just waiting in the queue to get bread. Despite all this, people were busy trying to make a living, and they avoided confrontation. And their political will was broken because there was no leader to unite them. And there was a common saying that probably many of us heard as we were growing up here in Egypt: walk adjacent to the wall and try to keep to yourself and don't get involved in the political matters to avoid basically the wrath of the regime. Some immigrated abroad, about 2.7 million, while others created their own worlds living in the past. And some got influenced by the Wahhabi thought from Saudi Arabia, which advocates blind obedience to the ruler. When I went to Egypt last summer, I saw in people's faces that life has become impossible, and it was impossible. So despite all this, it did not happen for 30 years because of all these different strategies that people have been trying to avoid the confrontation and the wrath of the regime. Why did it happen now? There actually have been signs since last year, but the regime did not pick up on them or did not acknowledge them. More open criticism started to appear in the opposition newspapers. The National Association for Change was formed early into 2010 to fight the constitutional amendments that the National Democratic Party undertook to ensure the passing of power from Mubarak to Gamal, his son. The association was joined by socialists, Nasserists, liberals, and Dr. Muhammad al-Baradei, as well as some Muslim Brotherhood. The parallel parliament was formed late in 2010 by opposition parties and the Muslim Brotherhood to discuss critical issues and show themselves as a possible alternative to the regime. The other change that, to me personally, showed that there is really hope, and people are really changing big time, and they are not really caring about the price they're going to pay for their freedom. I have an aunt who is 65 years old and has always kept to herself and cared about making a living and bringing up her kids. And she was not involved politically in anything, but she told me that she got a call from the Ministry of Interior, and they were doing a survey, and they asked her, what is your vision for the future? She said, without thinking, she answered, there's no vision, your future is black. So, and then after she hung up, she realized, you know, what these people do, but she didn't care. I thought, if my aunt got to that stage after all these years, then change is happening, and it will come from everyone in Egypt. More dramatic events happened throughout the year from last year until this year. In June 2010, Khalid Mohammed Saeed, 28-year-old young man, he lost his life after he was beaten up to death by the police in Alexandria. And they tried to frame him on drugs, and the whole population really refused that. And Wael Ghanim, who is the Google marketing executive in Egypt, used the phrase, "We are all Khalid Saeed" on Facebook. Of course, the Tunisian revolution ignited a spark and gave people hope that change is possible, and showed them how powerful they can be once they unite. A couple of days prior to January 25th, I received emails from friends who told me that they intended to join the protest and they will not give up. They are determined to continue no matter what the price is. The situation now in Egypt is there are over 30 political parties, and from all orientations. And okay, I will not get into details about that. The presidential elections are supposed to take place in November. There are some protests against the military council there. We can get into that in the discussion in the discussion afterwards. So the challenge is huge, and there will be many difficulties and pathologies of democratization, if we can use that term. But it is worth it, and if we value democracy, we need to support the transition. Thank you.